Pretty good game there on Saturday, eh?
You're talking about Florida LSU, more higher scoring. Oh no, you're talking Tennessee Alabama, the best game that I can't even think of a comparison that I've been to at Neyland Stadium with the high scoring, the quarterback back and forth, the stakes, and then what it meant for Tennessee, of course, to get the win. And it's a walk-off win as time expires. That game was everything, and the celebrations reflected just what that meant.
Yeah, it was a wild scene down there. Was there a point in the game where let me ask you this: when it was 28-10, did you think it was over?
I did not. No, I was. I had picked Tennessee to win without a great level of confidence, just because of the history of this series. Of course, when it was 28-10, though, I was very confident in Tennessee's chances. Bold statement, I know, but no, I expected Alabama to make some kind of rally and make some kind of game of it.
And of course it did, but when it came back down to it, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, I mean, what a game. Your co-host Jason Swain played a little wide receiver at Tennessee. What's been the conversation like on Josh and Swain about Jalen Hyatt and that legendary performance that's going to live in Tennessee football lore forever?
Yeah, it is that. It is a game that fans will talk about forever. There is a list of big-time performances in big-time games, and this series is right there at the top, and he joins the list. And Joey Kent, who has one of the biggest individual plays in Tennessee history, it came against Alabama, and it's remembered because of that game. 95, play number 1. It was an epic call. It was a legend throwing the ball to a legend, and it helped snap a streak. Well, Joey Kent after the game called Jalen Hyatt a legend. Number 11 to number 11 in that case, by the way. But he's that because the streak ends. The series has been what it has been over the last decade and a half, and that's no longer the conversation. And it allows Tennessee's program to be talked about among the best programs in the country again. And it's been too long since that's happened. So this is on that list of games that fans will talk about forever. And the first player, the first performance within the game that fans will forever remember is what Jalen Hyatt did.
Josh, you've been covering this team, been around this team a lot longer than I have because you're so much older than me, obviously.
Significantly older, yes.
Significantly, yes. Biggest Tennessee football win since when? I mean, do you have to go all the way back to the 01 season, or would it be the 98 season? I mean, biggest Tennessee win since when?
Yeah, so it's a little complicated to try to answer because my first reaction is 01 Florida, but then that can be negated because we know that the next week, Tennessee lost in the SEC title game to LSU and lost that chance to go play for a national title. So that 0-1 Florida win, the way that it's remembered is affected by what happened next, which this game can be as well. So knowing the result, then I think you have to go back to 98 and the win against Florida. That mattered so much, getting through Spurrier and knowing what that can mean. I mean, there's the national championship win, but in terms of games at Neyland Stadium, the 0-1 win is on the road. 98, the Arkansas win is huge, but that was more of a sigh of relief win for Tennessee. The win against Florida is comparable to the Alabama win. That's the one where you have the field being rushed and the goalpost coming down. So that's probably my answer. 0-1 at Florida was huge, and 98 Arkansas in the national championship. Obviously, you're not topping that because that's the national championship. But if we go to Neyland Stadium, I think the Florida 98 win and this past weekend's win against Alabama are very comparable for several reasons. Legendary coaches you're going up against as well, Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban.
Alabama's got some good football players. Tennessee absolutely made Will Anderson Jr. a non-factor. He made one play, and it was a big play. I'll say that. He picked up J.J. Crawford and took him back into Hendon Hooker and affected the throw. There was some other rush on that play, but that was a Will Anderson play. But that was the only play. I mean, Tennessee neutralized him. Tennessee did a great job. Darnell Wright made some money this week. He's made some money 2 weeks in a row, actually. But both Tennessee's tackles did a good job. And, Will Anderson Jr. was a non-factor, but unfortunately, Bryce Young was. He is a really, really talented football player, is he not?
Bryce Young, he's terrific. And if Alabama hits a field goal to win the game, and we're not having the conversation we are here over the last few days, then we're coming out of that game talking about what Bryce Young did for his Heisman campaign.
Yeah.
But Tennessee won the game, so the conversation then flips to Hendon Hooker, and that is how the award works. And by the way, Hendon was terrific. That's why that game is elevated in my mind, Eric, is because the quarterback battle was terrific. And quarterbacks don't go up against one another, and a lot of times that statement can be overdone. But Saturday, especially in the second half, once Alabama had started to mount a comeback, it did feel like it was quarterback versus quarterback who could lead his team the farthest for that road to a championship. And really Alabama's coming out of it still with a terrific chance to get to the SEC title game and get to the playoffs. So Nick Saban's right there. But Bryce Young was spectacular. Hendon Hooker came out the winner with 5 touchdowns and making plays. What he's able to do with his legs. He didn't have any spectacular runs, but he had drive extenders that then set up Hendon's ability to make plays with his arm. But if I had known that Bryce Young was going to go for 450 plus on Saturday, I don't think I would have picked Tennessee. I still would have said, okay, Tennessee's got a shot. We saw Anthony Richardson do what he did, but knowing what Alabama is, if they had that from Bryce Young, I wouldn't have been nearly as confident in the pick, where I still struggled there to begin with. But that's a statement to what Hendon and the offense was able to do. They got to 52 and they needed all 52 points.
Yeah, they certainly did. And, Hendon, I think he had like 53 yards on the ground, but he wasn't a big part of the run game because he didn't have to, which was good. But like whenever Tennessee's backed up in their own territory, Hendon just takes off. Just a smart veteran football play, knowing when to give himself some time.
Yeah, turning a 1st and 10 or a 2nd and 11. Yeah, I'm not being specific there, but those type situations into a 2nd and 3 or 4 or a 3rd and short just makes things so much easier for Josh Heupel with what they're going to do next. And it's something the defense has to continue to pay attention to. So it's a weapon within the offense, and it really matters Hendon's ability to take off and run, or if Tennessee designed something for him to be able to pick up some positive yardage to get that series of downs or that drive started up.
Josh, we asked this, after every Tennessee win now, and it's kind of fun to talk about early in the week every week. What's the ceiling now? Let me phrase it. What's the floor for this Tennessee team now? Because again, we as media members and fans, we can have this conversation. It makes you cringe if someone in that locker room is having this conversation. But you look ahead,
right?
Obviously, Georgia. You got the Kentucky game that Tennessee's going to have to come and play in. Of course, you can't come out there flat and. Kentucky can beat you if you do, but Tennessee should beat Kentucky. Tennessee should beat South Carolina. Tennessee should beat, Missouri and Vanderbilt by, 40 points if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
What's the floor for the Tennessee football team? And for the first time in, a decade plus, easily, I mean, you can have that conversation of some type of championship here this season. I mean, that's where this team is.
Yeah, I think the floor, so like how you see the worst case realistically going for Tennessee is 10-2 going to the Sugar Bowl. And I think it's likely that Tennessee goes 11-1 with still having a shot at going to the playoff. That scenario is pretty obvious. You lose to Georgia on the road, but if Georgia wins the SEC title game and is 13-0, and other teams have lost out there in other conferences, that an 11-1 Tennessee team with a win against Alabama and one of the best offenses in the country gets selected as one of the 4 to go to the playoff. The 10-2 floor, that's your question there, and go to the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, I think the scenario there is you lose to Georgia and you slip up, and that's what it would be if Tennessee were to lose to Kentucky or to South Carolina. I don't see the scenario with Missouri or Vanderbilt. I know Missouri almost beat Georgia, but them coming here, Eric, I don't see it really.
Yeah.
South Carolina, I'd be close to stunned if that were to happen, but I just referenced Georgia, Missouri, and it almost happened there. So that's why it has to be on the table to discuss. But Tennessee's offense, as good as it is what makes it so unlikely to me that Kentucky's able to come to Knoxville and keep up with Tennessee. Came close last year, so that's why it has to be talked about. And South Carolina, if they were to put things together and Tennessee turn the ball over, but that's the area Tennessee is in now. You know how we've talked about over the years. Well, if Tennessee's going to upset Alabama or Tennessee's going to upset Georgia or even Florida, they've got to be like +3 in the turnover battle. Well, that's what South Carolina's probably going to have to do to pull off an upset against Tennessee. Something like that, or big plays that swing the other way. I think 10-2 is worst case scenario right now for Tennessee, and 11-1 is a more realistic things going the wrong way. And by the way, Tennessee's going to have a chance, absolutely, in Athens to beat Georgia.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Tennessee lost the turnover battle 2-1 against Alabama the other night.
Yeah,
I mean and you still won the football game. I mean, it's even wild to think about.
Yeah, and one of those turnovers was a touchdown for Alabama.
Yeah.
Now, they also had the huge mistake on the punt return, which turned into a quick 7 points for Tennessee. But Yeah, that's how things have changed. There have not been too many times in the last 15 years where Tennessee could lose the turnover battle and have any kind of shot of winning, let alone covering what was a huge spread at the time. So that's another example of how things have changed for Tennessee for sure.